Today, we're going to talk about vulnerability, the superpower to intimacy. Mark, welcome back to Breaking Biscuits, the experience. Last week, we talked about love bombing, and we had some interesting comments that came back on love bombing. But this week, this is part 2, and we're going to talk about vulnerability, the superpower of vulnerability. And so love bombing is the opposite of what we want to do. So what we want to do is start talking about how we do real love. Mm-hmm. And you and I have been discussing this, and the core attribute in the first step is vulnerability. And you might say, well, what is vulnerability? It's the willingness to show up and be seen. And this is the important part, even when there's no guarantees. That's a quote from Brene Brown. And it sounds scary and risky, but it's so much better than love bombing.
Yeah. And I think, don't you think that we're susceptible to love bombing because honestly, we're just looking for intimacy.
That's it. Where we are. That's our goal, is to find that place where we're fully known, fully accepted, mm-hmm. which really is intimacy. And I know you have some thoughts on how vulnerability relates to intimacy.
Yeah. A couple of years back, I just started thinking about, I came up with a formula for intimacy. We've been studying, reading, practicing vulnerability since 2012. That's the first time I heard Brene Brown. Changed my life because I never heard it in my world. But what I learned was V plus P equals intimacy. And you may say, well, what's the letters? Well, vulnerability plus proximity equals intimacy. And so what I'm learning is there's couples, Toby, that live in the same house. They're no more intimate than me and a man on the moon because they don't have the vulnerability. So proximity doesn't guarantee intimacy. But so the level of vulnerability with proximity, it's going to be the level of intimacy. So if you want to increase intimacy, vulnerability is going to have to be in the equation.
Yeah, and man, Mark, I can speak from experience as you know, I'm a businessman, right? Like a business leader. And vulnerability for people like me in my life, my adult life, is incredibly scary. It doesn't feel natural. Like my story, I thought love would be earned through perfection. And the more perfect I was, the more I thought I would receive love. You might ask, well, where did that thinking come from? I was raised in a home that rewarded perfection. It's like the better you were, the more love you got, or that was the appearance. Mm-hmm. And so that got ingrained in me. And so it ended up working in my business life very well because I became performance-based. And I'm like, okay, well, the more I perform, the more rewards I get, the more appreciation I get. And therefore, the better I feel about myself. So vulnerability cuts across the grain in the sense it doesn't feel natural. And especially to men. And I know when we've done Breaking Biscuits events, we have men that come in and they are stonewalled. They look like there's no way you can penetrate a 12-inch concrete steel reinforced wall. And in 24 hours, they're an open book in our events. And it's because we've learned something about vulnerability and how to lead people into that place.
I think when you talk about performance in the business world, in my world, in church world leadership, it's called projected perfection, which you said a term a while back. you said, what was it? Image management.
Yeah.
And we substitute that. So we're getting appraisal, approval, acceptance, and honor and respect, and climbing up the ladder in our whatever field you're in. But we're sacrificing the intimacy because no one really knows us. And Brene Brown said about shame is the fear of disconnection, meaning if you knew who I really was, what I've done, what I think, you would reject me. And I'm terrified of that.
Yeah.
Speak to that image management. I think that's a huge thing with people because they substitute it. That's not vulnerability. That's not being authentic. That's letting people love me for who I think I want them to let them know. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. To your point, it's creating an image of yourself that you think will be more accepted and therefore more loved, because it still goes back to that foundation. Our need inside of us is to be fully accepted and fully loved. So we therefore create an image that we think puts us into a position to receive that. The problem, first, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And what I've learned, even in my business life, and we don't have time to share it today, but maybe we'll share it in future podcasts. I've actually learned that vulnerability in the business community, if done the right way, it is a superpower there as well. Because business doesn't work without relationships. It's different than your relationship at home, obviously, but it's still fundamentally the same attributes because it's a human connection. And business is human connection. Ministry is human connection. And so vulnerability, that ability to be real, to be yourself, to show those weaknesses, to admit, I jotted some things down here, Mark. It means like being open about your fears, your feelings, your flaws, your mistakes, your humanity. Like, that's not natural for most people to share that. And the question I have for you as I'm talking about this is, it's dangerous to share that with some people. So there's an aspect of safety,
Mm-hmm.
and trust. So how do you see vulnerability in the context of it being a safe place?
The only way I would, in my older life, the only way I would measure it and what I've learned, because in Breaking Biscuits, you just said these guys were stonewalled, but what's funny is not only they're a wall of stone. Remember when they showed up, they go, I don't even know why we're here. We talked about our problems on the way here. We got them fixed.
Yeah, we're all good.
We're all good. We're going to enjoy this resort.
Right?
That couldn't have been further from the truth.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So I think about safety, and the one thing that creates safety is when people share. That's what I mean, vulnerability and proximity. When people share the same level of vulnerability, it invites people to be that vulnerable back because it feels safe. And Breaking Biscuits, the very first session is that we pull back the curtain and we just say, this is where we're at, this is where we were, and there's no shame or judgment. And people find it very safe. And my illustration that I use is, because I'm a church guy, is Jesus at the Last Supper. You and I know he's breaking pieces. He's being broken. He's being vulnerable. I mean, he's not just breaking a bread. He's literally saying, this is my broken body. This is what I've gone through. And yet Judas couldn't endure that vulnerability and he left. Matter of fact, the devil entered his heart because he was unwilling. He had that opportunity, Toby, to say, man, I've been having bad thoughts. I don't know what's wrong with me. I've been planning to betray you, and I don't want to do that. And I don't know why. But that vulnerability forced him to either jump in or jump out. And he left. And so what a safe place to me is, I would never, you can only be as vulnerable as the person who's vulnerable back. That's how you know. I wouldn't tell my stuff to anybody. But I tell like we always say, Brene Brown says, tell your story to those who earn the right to hear it. And those that earn the right to hear it are the ones that are willing to share theirs with me.
Yeah, but man, the moment you share the story in a safe place and be vulnerable, like it's freeing. It is the most freeing thing you could ever do. But you literally feel a weight being lifted. And as you're talking, it's almost like I can feel the weight of our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
They're listening to us and they're saying, man, there's things I would never share about myself. There's fears I have and feelings that I have. I've held for years. And when they stop and think about it, they feel the weight and the magnitude of that sitting on them. And what we're saying today is that's keeping you stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And vulnerability is the first step of being unstuck. Like, how could you build an amazing relationship with another human being carrying guilt and shame on yourself? It's impossible.
Well, it's easy in the church world, because, again, that's where I come from. Because we think if we just keep showing up and keep praying, Jesus take care of it and take it away from us, and it doesn't exist. But I think what we're learning in this day and age of the world is that stuff don't go away.
Right.
And I think the older you get, you know what the awakening moment is, Toby, for me, was having this fear of vulnerability, being of really saying your heart's truth, or what you've been through, or what you've become because of what you went through on your inside. Like, my inside didn't match my outside, and I didn't feel like that was ever authentic. But when you share your vulnerability and you experience that freedom and acceptance on a level that you've never felt before, like, you would never be afraid of it.
Yeah, while you were talking, I was thinking about last week's podcast about the serpent deceiving Eve and love bombing Eve. And I'm thinking that's the whole deception of vulnerability, which is if we're vulnerable, we get rejected.
Mm-hmm.
That's our fear. Like, if you really knew me, you wouldn't love me. If you really knew what I've done, you would reject me. If you really knew, like, on the outside, I look like I got it all together, but on the inside, I don't. And so that fear is what keeps us stuck from being vulnerable. And that same deception that the serpent, the enemy, the devil, whatever you want to call him, that comes in and love bombs you, he comes in and says, man, just keep that to yourself. Take that to your grave. Don't share where you're really at. It's not going to matter. If you do, you're just going to get rejected again. Like, that's the words you keep hearing over and over. And when you're in relationship or proximity, as you call it, with another human, then you never experience that intimacy of true acceptance and true love.
I like what you said also last week about Delilah and Samson. He was slowly trapped, It wasn't a one-time show-up thing. But you know what he did, Toby? He broke his vow. He broke his promise to his own self.
Yeah.
And that's what love bomb will. If you're being love bombed and you break the promise to your own self, like, I'll never do this, I'll never whatever, then you're already trapped. You're just already trapped.
Well, what about the woman at the well? Like, how do you think that story fits into what we're talking about today?
She was looking for love, as the song says, in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
But Bishop Ash makes it so eloquent. He says, he went to the woman at the well, and she had a conversation with him, but she was willing to have an open conversation with him. So he took that space and said, you've been with 5 other men, and the one you're with's not your husband. But Bishop Ashman said, but you just met number 7. Like, true love walked right into your life. And I had always seen this water pot. She had a water pot. And what I think is she, as a woman, would go get water for the family, but I think she was performing for her male affection with her water pot. I don't know what that looks like in other people's lives, whatever that is. But when she met Jesus, the scripture says there in John 4 that she left her water pot. She never went back to performing for acceptance. And, Toby, people are susceptible to love bombing because they've been hustling for acceptance their whole life.
Yeah.
And some people who are controlling and manipulating, they dish it out like by the spoonful.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't get accepted, but you don't get fully celebrated.
It's called
the hook. Yeah, you get it by the spoonful.
Yeah, it's a little bait on the hook. You bite the bait because you want the acceptance, and then you don't know how to get off the hook, and they just keep reeling you in little by little, just like what happened to Samson. And so what we're saying today is love bombing is the wrong way. The right way starts with vulnerability.
Yes. Sharing
those fears. So one of the things I wanted to mention, we talked about the men, but I wanted to kind of break the myth for the women out there and for the men that are listening. And the myth is that men don't want, they don't want vulnerability, or they don't want intimacy. They don't want love at the same level a woman does. And it's just not true. Now, how we respond to that, is it different? Of course, 100%. Men are typically more closed off. They're tougher. They're not prone to share their fears and feelings. But we're both men. Mm-hmm. We've been there. We're older. We've done it the wrong way, the right way, and everywhere in between. And we know, like, come on, let's be real. We know every man wants to be loved and accepted. Every man wants intimacy. And we're not just talking about sex, and maybe we'll do a podcast on that. But that intimacy, meaning I feel close. I feel a connection. I feel like this person is part of me. Every man wants that. Every man wants to be vulnerable. Every man is afraid that if he is, he's not a man anymore. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to proclaim and to tell men, like, people look at me and say, man, I wish I had your life. I'd say, no, you don't. If you knew what I've been through, you wouldn't want my life. And a lot of it was self-induced because of how I looked at love the wrong way. And the reality is, yes, we want intimacy, Mark. Men want to feel that connection, no different than a woman.
Oh, you just said a big mouthful about, honestly, but we didn't know how to love ourselves.
Yeah.
It always goes back to that. I was talking to my friend, Pastor Josh, yesterday, and he said, a lot of people have a really distorted view of God and the concepts. And I said, you know what? Honestly, it's because they're viewing it from their own self-love, how they see themselves.
Yeah.
I just felt really powerful what you just said. It's like every man wants to be valued for who they are, not what they do.
Exactly.
I remember spending time with your father. He's a great, great, great believer. He was a mentor. He was a faith man, but he was a businessman, and he was generous. And I just remember coming in, and I would try to go see him every time I come to town, and I remember him like with tears in his eyes saying, Mark, I get letters every single day for people wanting me to help them. And I don't know who all to help, but he said, I just wish people would want to know me.
Yeah.
Not what I could do for them.
Right.
And I think that's the trap. We trade that kind of intimacy for the real intimacy. So the pastor's, let's say, is getting praise and honor and acceptance and approval, and he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but yet at home he don't get that. And I'm sure the business is the same way.
It is the same way, and quite frankly, the women feel, the wives, the women on the other side feel exactly the same way. They feel like they're not getting that from their spouse, their partner.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to, I think, what you shared earlier. The vulnerability has to be reciprocated, but somebody has to lead. Somebody has to be a champion. And what we do at Breaking Biscuits, and I think it's so unique and it works so well, is when we bring these couples together, we set the pace.
Mm-hmm.
We open ourselves up and we say, look at us. And we show what vulnerability looks like. We don't just give words. We don't just give content. Like, a podcast, we give a lot of content. But when we call it Breaking Biscuits, the experience, for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We can't explain the experience because it's something that happens deep inside of an individual. But the very point, the beginning point, is that vulnerability, Mark. And we do that ourselves. We open ourselves up and we show ourselves. We show our weaknesses. So we lead that. And when you lead in that, in a relationship, whether it's a friendship, a spouse, then you open the opportunity for somebody to reciprocate. And that's what Breaking Biscuits does.
It's an invitation.
Yeah.
It's an invitation into a world that you need to go, but you have no idea how to get there.
Yeah.
It's powerful. And we do it with purpose.
That's why we call it the superpower.
It is the superpower. It has the power to pull you from what you call stuckness or the cycle, or from darkness to light, honestly.
Well, I wrote some things down that it unlocks.
Okay.
So let's just hit these points. So vulnerability unlocks authentic relationships.
True.
Deeper emotional resilience. This is a big one. Connection and belonging.
Huh.
And then the next two are things we think about, or we don't think about, but are very true. It unlocks leadership and influence. That's what I was talking about in the business world, and creativity and innovation. So it removes the obstacles in your heart so that you can be the real you.
Yeah. And it gives you the freedom to do it without, what did you say at the very beginning? It's a risk.
Yeah.
But the reward outweighs the risk a million miles. Before we go today, can you, you told me a story last year about I don't want to speak names or details or anything, but in your business world, which is rather large and big pace and spread out all over the world, you were telling me a story about how all the leaders met at the airport, and it was an incredible, vulnerable moment, and it meant meant a lot to me. But I think that story would help people understand how men and women can do that, not from the church world.
Yeah, so I don't want to give it away because it was very private, but basically, yes, high level leaders we gathered together. It's a small group. Obviously, in an organization,
Mm-hmm.
the higher you go up, the fewer people there are. So these were the top leaders, and the whole purpose of us gathering and meeting was we wanted to get to know each other better. We felt like if we knew each other better, we could work together better. We could like chase the same goals together, and it would just bring unity and connection between the group. So there was a moment of really what we're talking about is someone led in vulnerability, and they just begin to share about their life. And so I can talk about myself, but I can't talk about anybody else.
Right.
But what I can say is like I opened my life up to these people because at this age, Mark, it doesn't matter anymore.
No.
Like, I don't care what people think.
Uh-uh.
And I shouldn't say I don't care. I care less. And so it's easy to open up. And so I just opened up and I shared the fears, the thoughts of where I was at, the current struggles that I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them were quite large and very sensitive and very hard to talk about. And as I shared, like people are like wiping tears off their face. And then one by one, people began to share and open their hearts.
Wow.
And be vulnerable. And I heard stories I would have never known, not in my wildest imagination. But to this day, that group, we would die for each other. Like it melted us together. And it's something I experienced in the business world I never experienced before. And that's what vulnerability does. It is a superpower. But it is so hard. It's so fearful. It feels so counterproductive. It's not natural. We want to protect ourselves. And vulnerability is laying ourselves open. It's what Jesus did on the cross.
But how many people would just want that in their home?
Yeah. I mean, we like in my current life, we have to like be intentional to even keep vulnerability alive.
Yeah.
It's that count. It cuts across the grain that much. It's so unnatural because we were raised such a different way. And our society tells us to protect ourselves, to not show our weakness. And the reality is when we do, it just creates a bond and a connection. It's the superpower.
But wouldn't you also say that we have a legitimate fear for being vulnerable because people have weaponized our secrets?
Yeah,
and exposed them, and you get tried in the court of public opinion. And with social media, you put one thing out there, you can't get it back. And so there is a legitimate reason to not, but there's really no legitimate reason to not with your mate.
No,
it's got to start there.
It's got to start there. And we have in Breaking Biscuits, God has given you a unique tool how to do this. And that's what the experience is. We spend literally 4 days together to a moment of where this breaking process takes place. And Mark, I just want to, like, as we wind down, I just want to talk about, we've got a Breaking Biscuits event that we're in the process of planning. We hope to do it in January. As soon as we get the dates selected, we'll let everybody know. We can only take 5 couples, but we we're here to help people. And we just want people to have the opportunity to experience these concepts in a very deep and profound way. And we do that by spending, 4 days together in Branson, Missouri, in this amazing accommodations to explore these, these concepts together. And when we do this, lives are changed forever. Relationships are changed forever. So if this is speaking to you, please pay attention and watch when we set our new dates. And we would love for you to be a part of this experience and transform your lives and your relationship in an intensive environment that's full of acceptance and love and transformation. And we can do this in 4 days.
And how about the reality that people are always afraid of what they don't know? Like, you haven't done vulnerability, obviously, so you might as well try it.
Right? It's not nearly as scary as it looks. Once you start, you can't stop. Once you crack open, it's going to come out. It's the cracking process that's scary. It's the opening up. And that's what Breaking Biscuits is all about. So, Mark, I think our time is up for this week. We're going to stay on this subject because there's so many layers and depth to this. And I just want to give you a chance to just have some closing thoughts before we end the podcast.
I just want to speak to, it's kind of important for us, if you watch this, to make a comment or making comments and asking questions. And even if you watch this later on and just say rewind, so we know like we're trying to help people. But I want to speak to the people who are tired of holding the balloon underwater. You don't have to do it anymore. Brene Brown says we armor up. We wear armor all our life. Try to protect our heart. Try to do this. But when you get about 40 or 50, you realize it's too heavy and you want a place to take it off. And Breaking Biscuits is a place to leave that armor. It's like a 20-pound, 1,000-pound gorilla off your chest. We can't spend our whole life, Toby, just holding a balloon underwater because you can't do it. And so I'm telling people that this podcast, Breaking Biscuits, is going to be very real, but we're very safe. And you just have to really pray about, think about, consider coming. No matter what state your relationship's in, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Agree. Well,
So
Mark,
I just want to thank you, man. Thanks for this sharing. It was perfect.
well, we want to thank for all the viewers for watching, and thanks for joining this week. And until next time, this is Breaking Biscuits, and we'll see you next time. God bless you.
God bless.